I heard your Meemaw didn't teach you how to sew. Well, come on, we're going to learn you something today. I'm not a professional. I don't hand sew often. So just, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's good enough for who it's for. I'll just preface it by saying that. So for basic sewing, you're going to need your needle. And you're going to need a couple other things. You got your scissors, your thread, your whatever type of fabric you're sewing, and an extra tool. I'll show you a little later. But see how different needles are. Like some are shorter, some are longer, and then also you can see the one at the top is a lot sharper, and so it'll go through a little easier. But sometimes you need a more ballpoint needle, so it just depends on what you're doing. This here is just regular thin thread, you would use for a regular sewing machine. This is what you would normally sew with. I'm going to be using a bigger thread just to show you. But for example, you're blind like me, or you don't have a steady hand, you can't get it through the eye of the needle. You take this little handy dandy tool, slip it through the eye of the needle, and then you can actually take your thread and put it through that little wire gap, I don't know what you want to call it, and then get a little tail and then pull it through. Bada bing, bada boom, your needle's threaded, and you didn't have to sit there for an hour getting pissed off because you couldn't thread the dang thing. So once you get that threaded, go ahead and pull it till it's even on both ends. And so now, like right here, I'm not getting it. Sometimes with the little thread, it's hard for me to get it even, and I just don't have the time or energy. See right there, it's still not even. So yeah, tell you what, I'm gonna get these scissors here. I'm gonna cut that. I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. See how it's even? Now what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and tie a knot. And I'm going to wrap that thing around my finger. And sometimes this is easier also when your finger's a little wet. If just lick it. And then you kind of make it pinch and roll and then pull down. And that creates a knot. See? Now your that ain't going to slip through your project. Okay, so in this next step, we're going to go ahead and put our fabric together. Now, for this, we pretend like this has a pretty side and a dull side. We're going to stick the pretty sides together, okay? This is felt, and just so that way you can see my stitches easier, I'm using a completely opposite color. You got your knot in there, and with this one, like I said, pretty sides on the inside, you're going to put those face to face, because this eventually, the ugly side is going to be on the inside. Now you're going to go ahead and put a stitch through, and then you see how when I pull this through, that knot did not slip through. It ain't going nowhere. So it's sturdy, it's tight. That's what I like about doing the knots the way I do them. You can do them different ways, but to each their own. I do it this way. So you go ahead and you want to make sure that you're stabbing it through on the same side that it came through. So we're on the other side. Now we're going to go across. See how there's a space there? We're going to go ahead and try to make the same space. And then stab it on that side. Pull it through. And then if you get pinched like that, go ahead and just straighten it out. And again, on the same side you came out of, go into. Now we're on the other side. And then you're going to go ahead and stab it through on the same side you came out. Boom. So this here is going to be just a very basic stitch. I mean, if you just need to slap something together real quick, this is very effective. You can even do 2 or 3 before you pull. It just depends on how you want to do it. If you get tucked up like this, go ahead and just untuck it, pull it through. And the thing about this one is, like I said, if it's just something quick, if you don't need a whole lot of strength in your stitching, this will be great. Like I said, it don't have to be pretty. It's not a big deal. If you're doing like pants or clothes or something that's going to need a little bit more of hold, you want to do more stitches, because you see how that gaped right there. You don't want your butt cheeks flapping through. That's not going to look good on anybody. So you go ahead and you go back through, but you try to line it up to where you're stitching on the opposite side. So it's going to end up being kind of like a solid line, kind of like a sewing machine would be. Like I said, not nearly as good because, well, it is what it is. It's good enough for who it's for. And we don't hand sew often, okay? You just need to know how to do it in case there's a situation. And again, not perfect. Sometimes you can get real good and get these to line up perfectly so that way it looks like a straight line. It ain't working like that for me. But that's okay, because guess what? I'm going to throw this away here in a couple minutes. Ain't nothing going to happen, you know? So you go ahead, you're almost finished. You get that line through. And then when you get to the very end and you're like, all right, that's great. We're going to end that right here. So what you're going to want to do, go through here and loop it. You're going to stab through. Now, the side you want to finish on, go ahead and keep a loop. And then stab through on the other side. Pick an area where it'll let you go through. And then just go straight and loop it through that little loop you had on the other side. Pull tight. Boom. Tied yourself a knot. Now go ahead and double tap like Zombieland taught you. Go ahead and sew through the other side. Don't pull all the way. Get on camera. And then stab through and get through that loop. Boom. Tied another knot. Look at you go. That ain't going nowhere. So once you're done with your project, go ahead and snip off that end. And now don't lay your stuff down. Put it in your pincushion. Maybe that should be your first project if you're learning how to sew. Because nothing's worse than stepping on a needle. So anyway, open that. If you had matching thread, you wouldn't be able to tell that was there. Okay? So you can sew so many things like that. You just flip it inside out, and then, the pretty side doesn't have the stitches. Now, just because I love you so much, I'm going to give you an extra stitch. Look at this fun little project you could do. So you get your little triangle cut, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you here the idea. So you got the triangle, and I'm going to cut this here. Well, that part's cut. I'm going to cut actually here. And then what we're going to do, we're going to sew a fancy stitch. I say fancy. Again, super basic. And what it's going to be, it's going to be a bookmark. So you would put that on the corner of the page of whatever book you're reading. I'll show you. It'll make sense in a minute. So go ahead and line up your pieces. And like I said, cut it to whatever size book you're wanting to do. It doesn't have to be big. It's actually better if it's a little smaller. But this is going to be the inside, and then the outside is actually going to be the outside. So it's going to be the opposite of what we did in the last video. Go ahead, thread your needle, tie your knot. Now, since this is going to be the pretty side, we're going to start under. You want to go ahead and hide that little knot, because nobody wants to see that on the outside of their project. So go ahead and tie. Now you're going to loop on the outside and then shove it through again. Now this is going to be a blanket stitch. This is going to be like the original knot that's going to go ahead and tie it in place, right? So that's what's going to really keep it from going anywhere. So there's different ways to measure. Some people like put a little tiny Sharpie, like 2 dots or whatever on their thumbnail so they can see exactly how far apart. I say just eyeball it, but if you want to be precise, there are many tools to figure out exactly how to space it. So you make your little slice there, and then you go ahead and punch, stab through with the needle. Now here's how it happens. You got that loop. Go ahead and swing it through. See, now that first stitch is a little wonky because I haven't done this in a really long time, but try it again and it's going to start making sense. Bada bing, bada boom. And if you loop it through, it doesn't go all the way, so it kind of puts a lining around the outside edge as well. Yep, again, like so, like that. And you can pull it tight. It doesn't have to be, but you can pull it tight. And once you get this all going, like I said, just loop, swoop, and pull. And it's starting to make like an outlining. This is great for a lot of things, especially if you are working with felt, or, if you're sewing a sweater or something, and you want to have a finished edge. Oh, see, I messed up. See, I got to pull this out. I get to talking and just get real, see here. I'm just going to pull that out. If you loop it wrong, just pull it out, because I think I went over and then under. I don't know. But anyway, so we going to go through that loop. There we go. I got it situated. So we're going to stab up, and don't pull it all the way through. Loop it. There we go. And then I'm going to stab down and loop it. So whichever way, you just got to make sure you loop it, and it gives you that nice finished edge. And with practice, you can be a lot better than me. Again, I don't sew by hand a lot. I prefer to use my sewing machine, because I'm not going to lie to you, I just don't have the time or patience for it. But you can see several times I've sewn from the bottom and I've sewn from the top. It, just whatever floats your boat. And so it doesn't really, not that I'm aware of, it doesn't really affect the project. But like I said, if you want to mark on your finger, like a lot of people mark on their finger, fingernail, what have you, so they know exactly how far apart to be. It looks better in the end, I guess, if everything's spaced the same, but you'll see here in just a second, it's not going to make that much of a difference, especially for a tiny little project like this. Especially at Christmas time, you can make some really cute felt projects. I feel like felt is the main time that I use this particular stitch. Now this, I'm just going to go ahead and tuck it in, because I already tied my knot. So I'm just going to try to stab it in here to where it's not going to be showing. And I'm going to tuck it, and I'm going to pull it real tight, and then I'm going to cut it. So once it loosens up, it kind of flips back in there a little bit. I don't know if that made sense to you. Remember, put your stuff in your pincushion, because you don't want to step on a needle. That should be the main rule of sewing. But like I said, we left that bottom part open, and it's felt. It's not going to fray or anything. So you just boop. I'm done with this page, but I want to, continue. And if you learn to embroider, you can actually make some pretty cute stuff on the outside. Bada bing, bada boom. Look at that. You got yourself a bookmark. Well, baby, I hope you learned something new today. I don't think we're going to be a seamstress anytime soon, but that's okay, because guess what? We're learning. We're doing great. We're doing just fine. Okay, we're going to be hand sewing everything for too long. I appreciate you coming and watching me teach you how to do something. Again, I'm not very good at it, so I'm not going to say I'm a professional, but if you found it helpful, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment. If there's something else you want to learn how to do, sewing-wise, or anything, really, I really want to help educate people on things that maybe you might not know how to do. Maybe your mama didn't teach you how to do XYZ. I don't know. Let me know what you would like to learn, and stay tuned for our next video. Take care. God bless. Bye.